my work has taken me all over the world, and I'm always almost met with disgust or confusion when I say, I live in Appalachia. Aren't you all rednecks? Why would you live there? Do you have indoor plumbing? Is it a lost cause? Questions like those are why I considered leaving the region altogether. I wanted to escape the negative stereotypes and not feel ashamed of who I am or where I'm from. But after spending years away from my hometown, something changed within me. I suddenly understood that the potential of the place I grew up in was there all along, and that it wouldn't live up to that potential if everybody leaves. So 4 years ago, I moved back home to make this area a better place. And ever since, I haven't felt embarrassed to be Appalachian. Now you may be wondering, what do I do that takes me all over the world? Well, you see, growing up here in the beauty of Appalachia inspired me to protect it. And between that and the fact that my dad has a career in protecting the environment, I became a sustainability scientist. For years, I helped prevent pollution at waste management facilities, hence the whole garbage queen thing. And now I use my expertise as a scientist to educate people online as a climate communicator. Think Bill Nye, but for climate change. Through my work, I get to meet people from around the world who are fighting climate change, as well as learn all the different ways we can solve it. And it's ultimately those experiences that inspired me to be on this stage. On one hand, I hated experiencing that disgust and confusion when I would tell colleagues where I live. But on the other, I realized the incredible potential this region has when it comes to climate action and justice. So, in the beginning, like really in the beginning, Appalachia was a model of sustainability. Dozens of indigenous tribes and nations lived here with the land for tens of thousands of years. That is, until European settlers started pushing them out in the 1700s. Despite their often poor treatment of indigenous peoples, those early settlers also lived with the land. And it wasn't until outside companies came into the region in the 1800s to extract our resources, namely coal, that things started to change. Those companies tore up our mountains at staggering rates, causing flooding and pollution issues that still plague the region to this day. Because of that, Appalachia is synonymous with environmental destruction. But what it really should be synonymous with is environmental injustice, because the people and environment here suffered from those outside influences, which really is a shame, because Appalachia is one of the most biodiverse regions in North America, and one of the most resilient to the effects of climate change. Did anyone know that? That shocked me when I went to college. This area, one of the most resilient in the world to the effects of climate change. Baffled. Baffled when I first learned that. However, that shame, it's also potential. Potential to not only right the wrongs our environment has faced, but to also go back to our sustainable roots and transform this region into a hub for climate action. So righting those wrongs is known as environmental justice, not injustice, just plain old justice. And it looks different for every community. Here in Appalachia, that can look like compensating those who suffer from black lung, reforesting mountaintop removal sites, repairing homes damaged by flooding, providing job training for former coal miners, remediating water supplies polluted by coal ash, and so on. Now, we're already starting to see some of that happen in the region, but we're going to need much more to fully undo the damage. And in areas where we are seeing that, we're also seeing many Appalachians go back to their sustainable roots. Now, that isn't to say that Appalachians just outright stopped practicing sustainability. So much of it lives on in our traditions, like canning, foraging, hunting, and even quilting. Use what you already have, take only what you need, and find new purpose for old things. Those traditions are being carried on by less and less people over time, though, because so many have left the region and because our society as a whole is changing. The old ways can still live on, though, and as climate change rolls on, we're going to need them more than ever. And even though Appalachia is one of the most resilient areas to the effects of climate change, does not mean we are entirely immune from them. I mean, look around us. Summers are getting hotter, winters are getting shorter, growing seasons are moving, storms are getting more severe. And all that will get worse if we don't take steps now to address it. But again, there's that potential to be part of the solution and help our region grow at the same time. And here's how I see that potential. Appalachia already has a decent amount of renewable energy with our hydroelectric dams. There's enough sunlight and wind here to rival the generating capacities of coal and natural gas plants. And old underground coal mines can even be turned into giant batteries for storing all that energy. Appalachia is also home to a plethora of farmers, many of whom grow crops and raise livestock in climate-friendly ways. In fact, Appalachia is home to the largest indoor farm in the country that just so happens to also be one of the most sustainable ones. And if you've bought a tomato in a grocery store recently, there's a good chance it came from that farm. And all that equipment that we need for climate action has to be produced somewhere. Why not have Appalachia be one of those areas? There's plenty of workers, industrial space, and access to energy to go around. Those manufacturing plants could help boost local economies that have been struggling ever since coal started to decline. And how can we forget about Appalachia's greatest resource, the landscape? Studies have shown that we must protect and restore our largest carbon sinks, like forests, if we want to address climate change. There are tens of millions of acres of forest throughout Appalachia, some of which are less than 2 miles away from where we're sitting. Some of that forest is protected, some unfortunately has been knocked down, but there's still plenty of work to be done to make our forest as climate resilient as possible. And that won't just help us here in Appalachia, that will help the entire world, because all of our ecosystems are interconnected. And one way to fund that work is through sustainable outdoor tourism, which we already have a lot of. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park in the country. The Appalachian Trail is thru-hiked by thousands each year. And some of the most pristine fly fishing rivers in the world are right here in Appalachia, just to name a few examples. I have met people from all over the world who come here for our tourism. They come here for our beautiful mountains. Why not protect them and create jobs? At least that's what I'm thinking. So, can you all see the potential that I do now? Some may see destruction. This is beautiful, this is not destruction. I see the beauty, I see the potential, I see the desire to help my fellow community. And that's why I'm not giving up on my home. Appalachia can undo centuries of environmental injustices and rewrite our narrative to be the sustainable region we were all along by joining the fight against climate change. As long as we remember that the most Appalachian thing of all is community. Community is why this area has been so resilient over the years. And it's why I believe we will live up to our potential. Because when we work together, especially here in Appalachia, the possibilities are endless. Appalachia can be part of the solution to one of the greatest problems humanity has ever faced. And in the process, create good-paying jobs for our people, protect the beautiful mountains we live in, and help carry on traditions we're at risk of losing. And hopefully, when we do that, generations down the line will feel proud instead of ashamed to say they are Appalachian. Thank you.